Hey everyone, glad to see you again. I hope you really enjoyed this video. Please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Also, if you have any creepy story, write it in the comments. Maybe your story will be featured in the next video. The village of Krayugrad had always lived its measured, quiet life. Silent streets, the creaking of old fences, unhurried conversations by the well. It seemed that nothing could disturb its peace. But in the air, there was always something elusive, as if the very land of this village concealed a secret. Sometimes it felt like faint footsteps echoed in the silence, and the night wind carried whispers, resembling the echoes of distant voices. Shadows flickered behind the houses, as if someone was sneaking through the darkness, watching the villagers through the cracked shutters. At times, they stretched, seeming to grow taller, writhing, as though something was shifting within them. The villagers sensed it, quickening their pace, trying not to look back, yet the slight tremor in their voices betrayed their fear. If you asked the elders, they would avert their eyes and frown. From time to time, whispers spread among the villagers about something unclear, hidden in the shadows, something that was never spoken of aloud. There was one place they particularly avoided, a decrepit hut on the outskirts of the village. The elders said that a family once lived there, but one day they vanished without a trace. Strange rustling sounds were heard from within at night, as if someone wandered inside. Sometimes the floorboards creaked, as if invisible footsteps moved across the old planks. Shadows flickered behind the cloudy windows, and sudden gusts of cold wind carried a thin, barely audible sigh, like a whisper. At night, faint sobs and scratching sounds could sometimes be heard, as if something inside was trying to escape. People said that anyone who lingered near the hut for too long would begin to hear their own name, spoken in an unfamiliar, whispering voice. The hut stood, covered in moss, as if nature itself was trying to reclaim it. The air around it carried a heavy scent of dampness and rot, and from within the cracked logs came a barely audible scraping sound, as if something inside was slowly clawing at the walls. There was always a twilight around it, even on the sunniest days, and in the silence of the night, a faint creaking could be heard. The floorboards seemed to breathe, to whisper, to murmur. Some claimed to have seen shadows moving in the windows, though the house had long been abandoned. And yet, everyone who passed by felt a sticky, lingering gaze on their back. But the strangest thing was that Baba Varya lived there. Children avoided her, fleeing the moment they saw her silhouette. Adults froze at her gaze, conversations fell silent, and the air thickened with unexplainable tension. The elders looked away. Women crossed themselves and men lowered their eyes, as if afraid she could read their thoughts. Her presence was like a shadow, cold, oppressive, inescapable. She was ancient, skeletal, with empty eyes. Those who met her gaze felt a chill run through them, their fingers growing numb with a sticky, paralyzing fear. There was something unnatural about her eyes, something that pulled you in, peering directly into your soul, leaving behind a gnawing sensation that you would never be the same again. Her movements were slow, almost gliding, as if she didn't step on the ground but drifted through the shadows. And her voice, when she spoke, her words sounded as though they were carried by the wind through abandoned attics, seeping cold into the very bones. No one remembered when she had arrived in the village. No one knew how old she was. She never asked for food, never attended celebrations. No one ever saw her buying anything, yet she always had food. No one ever saw her tending a stove, yet at times thick, acrid smoke curled from her hut, as though something other than wood was burning inside. Once, someone swore they had heard a child's laughter in her house, but that was impossible. One night, one of the boys decided to test his luck and crept up to Baba Varia's house. He told his friends he was going to look through her window, but no one dared go with him. When he returned, he was pale and trembling. When asked what he had seen, he only whispered, "She was staring right at me, but her eyes were empty, and behind her, someone was standing there." He said nothing more. A week later, his family left the village. When my grandmother was a child, she saw Baba Varia by the river. She was playing with her friends when she noticed her on the shore. Varia was holding a dead chicken in her hand, blood dripping from her fingers. Her lips moved, whispering something unintelligible. Then, suddenly, she lifted her head. Their eyes met. My grandmother couldn't move. She was paralyzed. Varia slowly, very slowly, smiled, and then something stirred in the bushes. My grandmother could have sworn she saw hands, long, writhing, reaching out from the shadows. The next morning, the village awoke in horror. Overnight, one family's chickens had all died. They were found scattered across the yard. No heads, no signs of struggle, as if they had simply fallen dead. People cast nervous glances toward the forest, and then a child disappeared. 6-year-old Pavlik vanished in the middle of the night. His mother woke up to a strange sensation, a freezing draft against her skin, a deep, gnawing emptiness. She immediately knew something was wrong. Rushing to his room, heart pounding, she flung open the door. The window was wide open. The curtains swayed gently. The bed, empty. The blanket lay discarded on the floor. Her eyes darted around the room, searching for any clue. And then she saw it. A bloody bird's claw lay on the windowsill. Her fingers trembled as she bent down to examine the footprints. Bare, dirty feet leading toward the forest. But they were too long for a child, too thin. And on the floor near Pavlik's bed, she saw deep marks, scratches as if long claws had been dragged across the wood, carving twisted, unnatural symbols. Her chest tightened with terror. She opened her mouth, but no scream came. Only a choked, strangled gasp. And outside the window, in the dark, something moved. The men of the village gathered with torches and weapons. They marched toward Baba Varia's house. The door was wide open. Inside, the stench of rot. On the table, an old withered doll. In the corner, sitting on a pile of rags, Baba Varia. She lifted her head and whispered, "Too late. He's already with them." And she smiled. Pavlik was never seen again. And a week later, Baba Varia disappeared too. Her house stood abandoned, but no one dared approach it. Years passed. Her house collapsed on its own as if it could no longer stand against time. But travelers passing through these lands told strange stories. Some heard a child's laughter among the ruins. Others spoke of a whisper, calling their name. No one dared stay for long, and at night, if you stared toward the old house long enough, you could see a shadow, thin, elongated, with glowing eyes staring right into your soul.